Alright my friends, so as you can see we have a new video from our boy Homu Lab that we are going to watch, and let me know your opinion about it in the comments section below. By the way, if you want to check out the original video, I'll make sure to let a link to the original video in the description below, and don't forget to subscribe, like and share to support the channel. And without any further ado, let us get started and see what it is all about.
Who is Sa? Is Vita Sa? Are Sa and the Cocoon of Finality the same? Is Sa from Venus or Mars? Did Sa create the Sky People?
Okay.
Is Sa evil? Then why hot?
Because it has to be! It has to be!
The Honkai universe is
Look at
filled
every
with
evil
the
character,
human
girl
dimension.
character.
From
It
top
has to
dollar
be
bills
hot.
and random gods that wish to play Go, to giant meatballs that can reset the world. If you look at it from this perspective, a human who got powers from the Sea of Quanta started absorbing energy until it
My
became
god,
an
this
active
design is
god,
perfect,
wanted
man.
to create their own civilization at the edge of the solar system, and got defeated by her literal clone, her emotions, a flaming burp, and a girl who
Chicken.
watched way too much Star Wars.
Chicken,
Isn't
brother,
far-fetched?
chicken.
Welcome! In this video I am going to explain everything you need to know about Sa, aka Dummy Mommy Eldritch Horror. But before we begin, shout out to Hikaru for finding Chibi Prometheus in the last video.
Alright. Purusha?
More than 250 million years ago, Purusha, commonly known as Venus, fought the Cocoon of Finality, which they called the Abyss. Much like on Earth, the Honkai on Venus grew stronger as the civilization made scientific breakthroughs.
My
the
god.
greatest scientists on Venus, Dr. Norton, Dr. Tyler, Dr. Mara, and Dr. Vita, were gathered to come up with a plan. Just like Sue, Vita was also a doctor on Venus. And for everybody who still says that Vita is not a Sue variant, maybe you should visit a doctor yourself and have your eyes checked. One day, the people of Venus acquired
True,
an endless
true, that is a
source
fact.
from the Sea of Quanta. Vita, the director and leading researcher, proposed to use that energy and link the consciousness of every living person of Purusha to secure humanity's future and defeat the Honkai. Basically, Project Stigma, but instead of merging everyone's minds into a dream, they wanted to do it in a simulation. They called it the Soul System. The plan
Wow.
failed due to the Honkai invading the data space and taking over the system, similar to what the Hersher of Corruption did in the Elysian realm. Dr. Norton and Dr. Taylor died, leaving only Dr. Mara and Vita behind. Dr. Mara wanted to leave Purusha and run away from the Honkai, while Vita wished to remain and fight. She wanted to remove the efficiency restrictions of the Soul System and have the energy from the Sea of Quanta overflow and destroy the Honkai. Mara warned her that the power from the Sea of Quanta could bring an entirely new disaster, but Vita did it anyway, resulting in the death of every living person on Purusha, except
Amazing.
for herself. Instead of dying, Vita was blessed by the sea with powers beyond her
Amazing way to save the place.
imagination. This was her first step in becoming Sa.
Oh
After
my
she
god.
realized that there were no survivors, Vita started the Soul System and saw that the human consciousness backups didn't disappear. So, to preserve the people of Purusha, she linked them to an ecological simulation system. The events during the second act of chapter 39 happen in that simulation, and all the people we interact with are simulations of the real people who died. This is also when Vita created her cleaners, aka the APHO constructs, to fight the Honkai beasts that appeared inside the simulation. After Dr. Mara's simulation tried to escape, Vita turned her consciousness into a defense unit capable of commanding the cleaners. At some point during the same time, Vita discarded her human name and adopted the name Sa. After many years, Sa finished constructing a giant spaceship meant to reach the depths of the Sea of Quanta, called the Star Traveler, and set out on a journey to revive the Venusian civilization.
Okay.
To complete their plan, Sa needed energy. A lot of it. And
Yep.
what better way to farm energy than making the
Than eating every single planet that comes in your way.
bubble words from the Sea of Quanta your nuclear power
Yeah.
plants. Some implemented rules into the bubble words through wishes. If the people of a bubble world wished for something, like for example I wish right now that everybody who watches this video will subscribe and hit
I am
the like
already
button for
subscribed.
more Honkai content, those wishes would become new rules. We've seen this with the Star Rock on Fallen Star, the bubble world that Kira and Nigrat visited, where people ran out of resources and wished for a new energy source, and with the Sage of the High Tower and the Underworld in the Salt Snow Holy City. The people of the Holy City wished for a sage that transported the source of the dead to the afterlife, the subnormal stigma
One of the
being
best,
born as the
like, this is actually one of the most underrated arcs in Honkai Impact 3rd, just because of the fact that people wanted to whine and cry about it. This is absolutely phenomenal character development for Seele and Veliona, and people just completely ignored the entire arc just because they were mad about how the Harsher of Finality ended up being. Just because of that, they completely discarded how amazing this arc was for Seele and Veliona. And this makes me really mad, like seriously mad. This is very, very annoying. You can't just discard the entire story after the Harsher of Finality just because you were mad about one thing that happened unlike what you were expecting. Like, come on, man. Come on. And people sometimes don't even try to read the story and they just say that it's bad. Like, try to read it, please, and then say that it is bad, not just say that it is bad. Like, come on. Come on, man, like, seriously.
Sage and the country of Fire and Sand as the afterlife. The souls in the country of Fire and Sand would then in return wish to return to life, so the bubble words started merging, resulting in the destruction of both. Some understood that human nature is self-serving and always leads to destruction, so they waited for these bubble words to destroy themselves before taking all the energy which resulted in the process. After a bubble word was destroyed, Mara and her cleaners would, well, clean the world of any energy left. Once a bubble word was completely empty, a new set of humans would appear and Sa would repeat the process. To assist in this process, Sa created multiple proxies. One of those proxies was Vita, who looked exactly like Sa when they were human. Vita's job was to observe the energy harvest and deal with any interferences.
One of the best designs, by the way.
With the help of Mara, Vita awakened her own consciousness and took over Sa's previous name. At some point, Mara escaped from Sa and took some of the cleaners with her. The Star Traveler was flying on the edge of the solar system for tens of thousands of years, never able to break out of it. The intertidal zones of imaginary internal energy formed a natural barrier that blocked interstellar transit to other worlds. This meant that Sa was stuck here, always hiding from the cocoon of finality. Mara managed to escape through a stargate, freeing herself from Sa and this world. It is very likely that the sky people that we see in APHO are the cleaners that Mara fled with, but more on that in another video.
We will know more about it as well when we get APHO 3, and maybe once we go deeper and deeper into part 2 of the story as well, because part 2 is going to build up to where we have APHO 1, and then we are going to get basically APHO 3 as well. I don't know if they are going to do them at the same time, maybe, like they did basically part 1 and APHO 1 and 2. Or if they are going to wait until part 2 is completely finished and then they would jump to APHO 3. I don't know, but I am pretty sure that they are going to make them all merge into one story for sure. So we will see how they are going to do it.
As time passed, Sa's existence became more inclined towards the Sea of Quanta, turning them into a hot eldritch horror. Eventually, their physical body reached its limits.
Man, this
forcing them
design
to
is
build a
just
new
perfect.
vessel inside the Sea of Quanta
I
to
just
control
can't
all the
believe how
Quanta
amazing
energy.
they did it.
Sa wanted to surpass the cocoon of finality and build their own end to the imaginary tree, replacing the cocoon as the entity that governs this world. Sa kept the consciousness of the 12 billion people from Purusha and wanted to find a small planet at the edge of the solar system, far from the cocoon's influence, where they could implant their own rules and revive Purusha. Sa used the energy from the intertidal zones of imaginary internal energy to transform a dwarf planet into a place suitable for housing human life. That planet was later named Phosphorus by proxy Vita. The last thing that Sa needed to do was to find bodies for the 12 billion consciousnesses. And luckily for her, a spaceship from Earth carrying the genomes of humanity flew right nearby. That spaceship was the Ark. Sa ambushed Grisio, put her to sleep, and stole all the genetic material. After the first batch of new Purushians, Venus people, was born, Sa descended to observe them. By this point, Sa already lost their physical body and could only descend as a projection. As they interacted, Sa noticed that the humans of Phosphorus were a bunch of assholes and decided to wipe them all out. Yep, she's a god alright. Apparently, the people of Purusha were pretty horrible, so she gave up on them. Instead, they decided to cultivate an entirely new set of humans from the genomes on the Ark. To make sure that the new humans would not turn just as rotten, Sa took inspiration from Grisio and decided to separate their colors/emotions. Sa wanted to give authority to these colors and have them lead humanity on the right path. After they were done, Sa tasked
This is actually a very smart
with
idea, by the
shaping
way.
their appearances, and Vita shaped them after herself because why change perfection? This is how the small Vitas were born.
Facts.
Sa gave them the authority
Facts.
to summon the artifact, which would flood Phosphorus and kill everyone. Of course, the little Vitas didn't know that, thinking that using the artifact would save the city. In Sa's eyes, if things got so bad that they needed a miracle, the civilization was a failure. After everyone was dead, Sa would create a new batch of humans and the civilization on Phosphorus would start anew. The Phosphorus in the main story is in the 9th cycle, by the way. So, we have a god that keeps resetting a civilization to achieve its goals. Does it sound familiar? Sa and the Cocoon of Finality have more in common than just how they operate. The cycle of death and rebirth is very common in the Chinese culture, so it's no surprise that we see samsaras all over the Hoyoverse games. The character used in Sa's Chinese name reads as Suo, and it can be found in the word Saha or Saha word, which represents a world where life is subject to the cycle of birth and death. Oh, fun fact, the ruler of the Saha world is Brahma, and Saha is just another name for it. Now, who might I ask is tied with Brahma? Yep, it's Kevin. And Sa has many more references to the Flame Chasers, essentially making Venus a place where Sa took Kevin's place and implemented the equivalent of Project Stigma, but ended up making things much worse.
Yep. But ended up kinda stronger, I guess? I don't know, because actually Kevin was fighting with all three Harshers at the same time and he was just destroying them, so nah, maybe not. Maybe not, no.
It is no secret that Sa was afraid of the Cocoon of Finality. It seldom dared to explore the borders of Earth and Mars to avoid detection, only dabbling with some of the bubble worlds near Earth. After ascending to a higher plane, Su could observe the entire solar system, albeit gradually as he was adjusting to his new power. He noticed Sa a long time ago, but chose to not take any action because the Cocoon of Finality was a far greater threat. Interestingly enough, Sa was aware of Su all along, but chose to ignore him because they didn't consider him a threat. After the Cocoon of Finality was dealt with, Su put in motion a plan to bring down Sa. He teleported Fu Hua to Phosphorus as a projection to save Grisio and confront Sa. Because Su is not part of this world anymore, his only connections here remained through the people he interacted with, which are Fu Hua, Senti, and Durandal. And before you say that Su never interacted with Senti, Senti, keep in mind that Senti was born in Fuhua's body, so there was a connection between them there.
Yep.
Fuhua, together with Grisio, Vita, the small Vitas, and even Mistalin, who was guided there by Su as well, fought against Sa, stalling them enough so that Kiana was able to snipe them with the power of finality, destroying all of Sa's roots in the proper world. But even so, Sa wasn't really dead. The majority of Sa's body was still in the Sea of Quanta, but they were severely weakened, needing tens of thousands of years before they could come back. Su's plan was a success. But wait, there's more. While everything else was going on, Vita put her own scheme in motion. She snuck up on Sa's remains in the Sea of Quanta and took her authority and eyes of body. Those are the same eyes that Su possessed, allowing Vita to be omniscient. This means that now she knows basically everything. And yes, that includes what you do every night looking at her fan arts. So, is Sa completely dead? Technically, no. Sa is still in the Sea of Quanta, but they are kinda trapped there without knowing what's going on the proper world, not to mention that they are weakened after Kiana blasted them across the solar system. Sa was an interesting enemy because unlike the Cocoon of Finality, we see them gradually becoming a...
The developers already said that Vita will play a role during part 2, so most likely she is going to appear and she will have a pivotal role in the story as well. And is she going to be evil? Maybe, because she did say that she put on a very good act, so maybe.
God. As they kept discarding their humanity, they started thinking more and more like a computer, always choosing the most optimal solutions, to the point where even Moriarty mocked them for being extremely predictable. And the irony hits even harder when you realize that Sa was defeated by her humanity. Even small Vitas were the embodiments of her emotions and virtues, and Proxy Vita was implied to be subconsciously created by Sa to preserve her humanity. And you can say that Vita is more human than anybody during this story. She is unpredictable, always chasing her own interests, self-centered, and acts on a whim. She doesn't have any lofty ambitions to become a god, she just wants to be free. Honkai Impact 3 was always a game about humanity breaking free from the shackles of destiny, and destiny was always portrayed as some kind of higher being manipulating the fate of mortals. But in the end, humanity's perseverance always comes out on top, breaking the shackles and freeing themselves from their fate. Vita and Sa are the perfect representation of what the Honkai series is all about, and this is why their story was so interesting to watch. I was born because of God, and God died because of me.
That was a perfect quote. That was definitely a perfect quote. Yeah, I definitely agree. The story for part 1.5 was absolutely phenomenal and people just disregarded it for no reason. Yes, I agree, the Fuhua part wasn't as good as the Sele part, but it was still very good. It wasn't as bad as people were acting as if it is. It was just phenomenal. Yes, there weren't really that many insane deaths, like let's say Elysia or Himiko, but the story itself, it was just perfect, and I really don't understand why people just keep on crying about it, but whatever, I guess you can't convince people to maybe read the story before crying about it so that they can see that they are wrong about it, but whatever, I guess. Anyways, great video from Homu Lab as usual. Make sure to check the original video. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to support the channel. And with that being said, see you as always in the next video of Honkai Impact.